Hey friends, Paisleyandglue here, and today we are going to talk about the recent build I did of Laudna from Critical Role. I watched a lot of Critical Role over the pandemic, like a lot. Like I have merch a lot. I found that it's a really good thing to watch while I am working because I can kind of like put it on in the background. You don't really have to watch; you can just like listen, and it's long, so I don't have to like keep changing it to the next episode or whatever. But it's super fun. And when I had an event to go to in December in a different state, I needed something that was a little bit smaller and could pack easily and was kind of comfy to wear, especially if it was in a warm climate. So I decided to make Laudna because I really like the character and I like the costume, and I thought I could do the costume in kind of a stash busting, kind of a thrifting sort of combination. And I had a really good time making it. So I'm going to do two videos. The first is on the costume and basic accessories, and the second one is about her kind of spooky droopy finger things and how I made those out of black latex. So let's get started. So here we are. I did a bunch of thread up purchasing at the beginning of this. The top one is from Goodwill. It's too short, but I have to lengthen it anyway to add in those lace pieces. So hopefully that'll get it closer. And then the lace one underneath is too long, so that will come up. Highly recommend thread up. The lace one was like new with tags for like $10. This shirt is kind of awesome. Also from thread up. Basically new. It doesn't have tags, but it doesn't look like it's been worn. Obviously, the shirt in the art doesn't have the sleeve embroidery, but you know what? It is fine. We will see how this dyes. It is supposed to be rayon, but the embroidery is polyester. So we'll see if that means just this or if that means that section as well, which would not be ideal. So big experiment. I'm also dyeing a bunch of extra fabric to add cuffs to this because they're not really long enough. And I'm kind of dyeing a bunch of different things to see what ends up being the most similar color. So I've got some silk scraps, I've got some cotton gauze scraps, I've got some rayon scraps from like just like ambiance lining scraps. And I don't even know what this is. Let's just throw it in there and see what happens. Oh, hello. It is the next day. The dyeing of the shirt went pretty well, I think. We did a bit of an ombre situation, and I also this cotton gauze I think is going to be a good match to make the cuffs for the shirt. And then I also ended up dyeing this trim, which was like I don't know, it was like white and gray and multicolored. So I dyed it black because it was cotton, so that dyed really well. And then I'm going to add it to this skirt that I have lengthened with this like weird lace fabric situation. So putting the cotton lace over the weird lace is going to make it more better, I think. So I stitched the black lace trim over these strips that I've inserted for length, and it is fine. It's fine. Now I was ready to tackle the shirt. I didn't have a lot of time to dedicate to this build, but I could slap some red ribbon on the front, and that was going to make it a little bit closer match to the art. Notice how the thread on the original shirt must be polyester because it did not take the dye like the rest of the rayon. I also cut out some wide cuffs from the cotton gauze that I dyed to match, and I added some more ribbon, and I machine stitched kind of like a really quick embroidery stitch sort of design to kind of match the rest of the embroidery on the shirt.
This was like super duper slapdash, but I am almost certain that literally nobody noticed, so everything's great.
She's coming. Laudna. Okay, so we are dyed. I added all this red ribbon to a more appropriately mimic what is going on in the shirt in the art. I may add some yellow. I don't know. Kind of depends on if I run out of time. We've got the start of some belts and this skirt, which I made work. It's not beautiful, but it is fine. And the most important thing is put in my pocket, which will be mostly hidden by all like the business that hangs off the belt. And I did add a cuff onto the shirt. I dyed this fabric to match. And then kind of did some like approximations of the embroidery with my machine super fast to kind of approximate that so it kind of makes sense. The one thing that I'm not super excited about is that this sleeve is not full. Like it's not a bishop sleeve. Like I want there to be fullness here, and there's just not, since this was a purchased shirt. It's possible that I could add some kind of piecing in here to add a little fullness. It sounds like a pain in the butt, so I probably will not do that, at least for now. Maybe later, we'll see. But right now, I think we're calling this done. It just needs some snaps, and then it is kind of what it's going to be, unless I add a little bit of yellow, which I might still do. TBD.
So with the convention quickly approaching and the soft parts pretty much done, I got started on making all of her accessories. First, I made a quickie little spool with some cardboard and some other things I had laying around, and super fast and quick and very satisfying. Then it was time to think about the shears and the hammer pieces. At some point, I may get these 3D printed, but I was on a budget and I was on a time crunch, and I absolutely had what I needed at home to make a good placeholder for right now. I made a paper pattern and I cut out several layers of black Warbler and Wonderflex to make the scissors. I then used a heat gun to fuse the layers together, and I waited until they were fully cooled before I removed them from my silicone mat. Then I reheated the handle section and shaped them into more of a rounded shape, and then heated the blades and used a sculpting tool to make the edges nice and sharp. I then started running out of time and forgot to film the painting process, but I coated them in Flex Bond and then I painted them with various silver acrylic colors until I was generally happy with what I had. The hammer was even easier. I didn't want anything heavy in my wig, so I used a foam dowel as the shaft, and then I used a Dremel to carve the hammer head out of foam. I then sealed and painted with Flex Bond and acrylics. Okay, Pate de Rolo. I started out by making his little feet out of wire, and then I coated the wire with Smooth On's Freeform Air product. It dries really hard and really light, which is great. After that cured, I sculpted them down with the Dremel, and I did not film that. I then painted them with acrylics, and then I just screamed internally the whole time. I then moved on to his body. I made it from a gray upholstery felt that I had in my stash. I sewed the body together, trimmed and clipped, and then I turned it right side out. I also sewed the tail into his little butt at the same time. I did end up using hot glue to attach his little feet into the legs, and then I attached the bird's skull head. I totally bought the skull on Amazon. There's no shame. I did glue the head on initially, but then I ended up using a needle and a heavy thread to secure it because otherwise I think it would have fallen off. It's pretty heavy. I think it's made of resin. Then I used batting and some heavy metal beads that I had in my stash to stuff his body up and give it a little bit of weight. And then I sewed up the side of his body by hand to finish him off.
You guys, I just like can't even. Like what? It is so cursed. I mean, like what is this even that I made? So silly, but it's kind of great. And I was pretty proud of myself for how fast this came together and kind of how effective it is. I don't know. What is this hobby? It's so weird.
And then the last thing to do for the costume was to add some purchased belt buckles to the belts, make a pouch, and then do some rigging on all of those belt accessories. The wig that I bought was a lace front wig, but I have a weird shaped hairline, so they don't usually fit very well. I did add some black weft to the temples to fill in my natural hairline, and then added white and black at the front of the forehead to create a widow's peak. I also thinned the wig out a lot, both by taking out some entire wefts and then also using thinning shears. Nobody has that much hair in real life, and for something like this, I think it makes it look a lot more natural if you take out a bunch of the bulk of the hair. I may have gone slightly overboard in this instance, but it also made the wig lighter and more comfortable, so I am okay with that.
So I just wanted to talk about, now that I've worn this and sort of know that this all works, I just want to talk about my rigging slightly, mostly about the belts and all this business. So we can also do a quick close-up of the little pouchy do that I had, and this has a little magnetic closure on it so I can store some small things. My phone doesn't fit in here, but that's why I have that big pocket on the side. But I could put, stick my badge in there or chapstick or whatever I need. And then we can see a close-up of the scissors, which are fine. Maybe I'll remake them at some point, maybe I won't. But the thing about this belt is all this business is supposed to hang off this bottom belt, but because at least mine is kind of like a super flimsy pleather, it was gonna pull the whole thing down and stretch it out and like be super annoying. So what I ended up doing was stitching this piece actually to the black belt. So if we look behind here, we can see that this is stitched here, and then it kind of creates a belt loop for this brown belt to go through, but you can't really tell once it's through that loop that it's stitched down. And then it's the same in the back. So this hemp is stitched to the black piece, and then the belt goes through there. And then to keep the upper belt from sagging too much, at least, I did do thread belt loops on the black to keep that belt in place on both sides. I used just a thread chain, and I have a video on that of how to do this. They're a little bit more invisible than using something else, but you could always just use a ribbon or a piece of twine or leather or something like that. And this black belt does lace up in the back so that I can have this be adjustable if it stretches out over time, because it's also pleather. And another little loop in the front. And now after wearing this for a day, I can attest that everything stayed in place and nothing slid around. And at some point I will be doing some more accurate buckles. I just bought these, which are not really accurate to what she's supposed to have, but that will come, and that's easy enough to switch out. at a later time. So there we go. And then here's a close-up of the little hammer. So you can see how that turned out, because I really did not document that very well. This is a foam dowel, and then the head is also foam. It weighs basically nothing, and I couldn't even fill it in the wig, which was really nice, because whatever I can do usually to keep wigs as light as possible, I will do, because usually they're horribly uncomfortable for me.
That's it for this build log. The next one will be covering how I made her spooky drippy black fingers. And if you are embarking on a Laudna build, I hope that this gives you some ideas, and I can't wait to see what you come up with.